So I just want to take a moment to say thank you to everyone for attending on this current E3, which I know it's right before the holiday season. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm Amy Fitzpatrick and I'm the Director of Marketing for IEVM. I just wanted to start the webinar by asking if you have any questions for the panel throughout the session. Please just click the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen and you can type in your question. Ebony will work through those with the panel at the end of the session. But I'm going to go on ahead and get it turned over to Miss Ebony Wilson, our past chair for the Diversity Inclusive Leadership Committee. Thank you, Miss Ebony.
Thank you, Miss Amy. Good afternoon. Yeah, I think we should all be in the afternoon at this point. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. First, I want to say to all of the wonderful people that are on with us today, our panelists can't see your beautiful faces. So if you could in the chat, just drop your name, where you're from, what you do. We'd love to know who is here with us today. So please just drop that in the chat for us. So today, our conversation, of course, is wrapped around the topic of accessibility in venues, what that looks like, what that means. And we have three amazing panelists on here to talk about this. So we have Miss Darby Lee Young on here. Oh, they're coming through to say hi. We've got Mr. Randy Lee Little. And then we have my favorite, I'm going to say this right, Leo Lejeune. Leo Lejeune is here with us. So I'm going to go around and give them all an opportunity to say a little bit about themselves. So I'm going to kick it off with Darby.
Thank you, Miss Ebony. It's so great to see you. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me today and our panel. I am Darby Young. I'm the founder of Level Playing Field. We're an accessibility consulting firm based out of Calgary that we work all over North America on different projects, whether it be conference centers, arenas, or theaters. And I have cerebral palsy and I travel on my scooter, which is behind me. And I'm excited to have a conversation with everyone today. I'll pass it back to you, Ebony.
Thanks, Darby. Now over to Randy.
Hi, thanks, Ebony. Hi, everybody. My name is Randy Little. I'm with the Calgary Exhibition and Stampede out of Calgary. I'm the manager of major projects, and we just completed an addition to our existing convention center of the BMO Center. It's 550,000 square feet, and in which we engaged Leo from Stantec and Darby Lee Young, who was a part of the accessibility piece of building the project and design.
Thanks, Randy. And by the way, everybody, I'm going to Randy's house on Christmas Eve because he's doing a seafood boil. So I'm going to go hang out with him on Christmas Eve. Don't tell my mom, though.
Now, I wish I could send you an invite, Ebony, but we're on our postal people are on strike up here. So I'll send
you doing what?
Invite. Our postal people are on strike in Canada, so I'll send you an invite. How does that sound?
That works.
Good.
And then last but not least, Leo.
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to see you all and participate in today's conversation. My name is Leo Lejeune. I am a senior architect and vice president with Stantec Architecture. My role at Stantec is I oversee education projects globally for the company, and that includes K-12 schools through higher education projects on campuses for colleges and universities, including student housing. However, for the last 5 years, I've spent being the lead architect on the BMO Convention Center expansion that just opened in Calgary. That's where I've worked really closely with Darby and Randy here in this call, and really excited to share some of the learning from that exercise with you all. Thanks, Ebony.
Thank you so much, Leo. I'm going to tell you guys, we got a packed house in here. We've got convention centers, we've got arenas, we've got performing art theaters, we've got convention centers, we got people from all over the country. We got a couple of our friends from Canada are on with us today as well. we've got guest services, we've got event managers, we've got accessibility coordinators. So we've got everybody here with us today. So guys, as we said earlier, please make sure as we go through this conversation, if you have any questions for us, please make sure you put them in the chat. We will leave some time at the end for questions for our Q&A. So as we go through this, please make sure you put those in the chat. So first question, and we'll start off with Darby. What are the most common physical, sensory, or communication barriers you've encountered in venues? And then second part of that is, how do you think they can be addressed proactively?
Well, I think one of the biggest barriers that we see, especially in venues, is that everybody thinks of the wheelchair. Because as we know, the wheelchair is the international symbol for accessibility. So if we take a step back and take everyone away from that and also think of vision and hearing, like you said, about sensory and communication, those are key aspects. And a lot of the times buildings are built or designed for the wheelchair, and we lack on hearing by putting in hearing loops. Now, with our BMO expansion project that we just opened, we have included the hearing, the vision, and the physical, and we've gone above and beyond that because we want to make sure that everyone feels that they're warm and welcome and that they feel like they're seen as a person versus a disability when they enter in the facility. So by just addressing different ideas and different mechanisms, we've been able to make it an inclusive space. When we think of sensory, we've also made sure that there's Braille and proper use of Braille and how that's located so that everyone's aware. And we've added, like I mentioned previously, about hearing loops, but we've also exceeded when it comes to the difference between accessible washrooms and universal washrooms by making sure that we've included adult change tables, because the definition of an accessible washroom is one without an adult change table, and you can only call a universal washroom when you have an adult change table. So we've definitely tried to make sure that everyone feels warm and welcome by including proper color contrasting, the Braille, the hearing loops, different features, so that it's not just driven as a checkbox towards the wheelchair. Does that answer your question, Emily?
Yes, that answered my question. But I'll ask the chat out here. I don't know how many of you knew the difference between an accessible restroom and a universal restroom. I had the privilege of learning that in a conversation that we had to prep for this. But any of you out there, you can drop it in the chat again. Is there anybody that has a universal restroom, which means it's not only accessible via wheelchair, but it does also have an adult changing table in that facility? So if there's anybody that has one, definitely chime in here in the chat and let us know if you've got a universal restroom. Okay, so Randy, from your experience, particularly as the project manager for this project, and just in general with your experience, what have you seen as far as the common barriers for inclusion in venues?
From from my 5 years at the Stampede, just looking back at the buildings, the existing facilities that we have now, some of the challenges that we actually have right now are actually including or making provisions for anything to do with barrier-free access. In particular, we've got a lot of large facilities that have electrical rooms, for instance, that are a far distance away, and these are concrete buildings, and actually making any sort of custom doors for barrier-free access and actually getting power to these. These are some of the challenges that we face now. However, we do make sure that when we're going into a renovation of any of these spaces, we always plant the seed at the head end of the game of design to make sure that we actually include it's really necessary now that we actually make these inclusive spaces for everybody. So that really is some of the challenges that we face now, is kind of the, we'll call it, and the antiquities in the buildings.
Mm, mm. And so, Leo, from your experience, um, how do you feel like these things can be addressed proactively when we talk about some of these common barriers? How have you seen, or how do you think they can be addressed proactively in conversations when you talk about, design, whether it's renovations or new builds?
Great, great question. And I would say, typically on my experience as an architect, very often you're largely focused on the physical barriers. So that's, entrances to washrooms and entrances to the buildings, access to elevators and things like that. But adding that extra layer for the sensory improvements and the communication improvements, I think, are where we need to raise the bar. And to do that, like Darby outlined some of what we've done on the BMO Convention Center with the listening devices, introduction of Braille on signage. But to answer your question as to what can we do, I would say introducing the conversation sooner, and not just dealing with the bare minimum that the building code requires, but having conversation with your client and having conversation with your user group, in this case, the public, and maybe a specialty consultation group that represents the public. And thirdly, with your builder, so that there is time to get these features into the project, and also budget set aside so that you're not introducing them at the very end when everybody's attention span and budget is so limited. If you have the conversation sooner and get buy-in, then those features will last all the way through design and construction. That's
Thanks,
my
Leo.
advice.
Thank you so much. Darby, off of this, I want to pose a kind of question to you, because when you talk about like physical sensory barriers, you talk about color contrasting, the appropriate use of Braille, induction loops. I, I I don't feel like that's general knowledge. So what do you think from an educational standpoint? How do you think, before even bringing in, general public or user groups like Leo suggested, how do you think that as venue operators, venue managers, how do you think we can work on the education of those items?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me, and I said it earlier, is I want to be treated as a person. I want to be treated, not as a checkbox, which a lot of the times when we build spaces, it's built to building code or the ADA. And it's not actually thought about how the person physically uses the space. And so if you take the BMO, for example, if you take a step back and include us, or an accessibility consultant at the very start when we're in pre-design, then we can sort of lay out those questions and ask what we need to know, and help the design team move through the process all the way through schematic through to occupancy, to make sure that they understand as well. Because like you said, a lot of people don't understand the unique needs that everybody has. And when I say unique needs, that's everyone, because you're unique in your own way, and how you use your space, your office space, the arena, all that type of stuff comes into a factor. And it's the matter of, yeah, taking that step back, that holistic approach, and being like, okay, but if I'm also 80, because a lot of times we forget that this also includes seniors, it includes the delivery guys. We all know we order from Amazon. We all know we order in food. How are these guys also bringing that information or their stuff to the building? And what does that look like so that they're also included? And understanding sort of the community before you go to stakeholders, you can look at your community demographics and see what's available, and understand, okay, if I'm in Palm Desert, where it's a more higher senior demographic, then we know that we're going to need more accessible parking for the arena, or we're going to need more of certain things. It's taking that step back and looking at what's around and being able to provide that, but thinking from the box of not a checkbox, but as people for people, not just a demographic. Does that answer your question, Emily?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I will say my office doubles as storage. I've said this many a times, and I'm sure there's a couple people in the chat. I've seen a few of them that have heard me say buildings are built to be pretty. They are not built to be functional, because I tell you, we'll find storage closets in the weirdest space. I'm like, why is this here? Where they put escalators sometime. I'm like, that don't make no sense right there. Then nobody talked to us. Somebody should have asked me first. I'd have told them that is not where that escalator goes. But
And
in
it's
as
funny.
storage.
It's funny you say that, because both Leo and Randy are aware of this, but I'm actually going to venue school, and I just finished my first year because I wanted a better understanding of how, from the operations standpoint, you guys use the buildings so that we can help bring in that conversation. And so that it's not just the patrons, it's also the staff that work there in making sure that it's a safe environment.
Yeah. And I mean, even the little things that you did talk about with like induction loops and using color contrast. On my team, I have 3 hearing impaired or deaf individuals that work for me. And so on our team assisting guests, and we've had a number of guests that are just, they are enamored by that. They love the fact that, there are people that are like them that work in the space. But we had to have conversations about how do we support their needs as team members in the space so that they can be a full contributor as a team member. So like what do we need from them, and like what do we need for them to be successful? And we've had to since have those conversations with them. But to your point, it's like looking at the totality and the whole of the experience. Actually, I have three deaf, hard of hearing, and then I have one team member that is mobility impaired, but he is one of my most engaging team members you will ever meet, and knows the
Does he
answers to
run you
all the
over?
questions in training. Huh?
Does he try to run you over?
No, because he loves me, but I wouldn't be surprised if he tried to run other people over. We've told him he
I
could.
try to run these guys over, but it's only because I love them.
We told
So
him he can clip ankles if somebody seems like they're being a little rude. It's like, just clip their ankles. It's fine. Nobody will know.
that's what
It's
I
okay.
tell people when I go into parties. My scooter likes to meet ankles. Sorry.
So we did have 3 people come through on the chat that let us know that, well, 2 that currently have, universal restrooms, and then we've got 2 others that are working on it, as one's researching and the other is working on it. So the Arts United Center is doing a modernization and expansion. So once they complete that in fall of 2025, they will have a universal restroom. And then Ford Field said they're in the midst of researching adult changing tables and plan to install a couple in 2025. So that's awesome. We installed our first one a couple of months ago, and it has been we have received rave reviews, feedback, and comments from guests. So it's definitely worth it from a guest experience standpoint.
They're not cheap, but they
They
are
are
worth it.
not
And
cheap.
they make a huge difference. People don't
Mhm.
necessarily understand the impact
Yeah.
of what an adult change table can bring, because it brings out families with persons
Hmm.
with disabilities. It brings in a whole different network. And I've always said, just because I'm disabled doesn't mean I've got money to spend.
Yeah.
Like, it's a big deal, and people just are slowly starting to understand the importance of having to change, or having to, needing it when you have to go to the washroom. And that's that self-independent stuff.
Yep. So we are glad we were able to provide that. And I will tell everybody on the call, If you're having trouble convincing your leadership that it's important, when you have guests provide you the feedback, you need to make sure that that gets to leadership, because that's how we got the approval on ours. We had enough guests that, made the comment, and then one actually got to one of our members of one of our ownership members, and they were like, well, what are we doing about this? And then I started looking at people. I'm like, what are we doing about this? What are we going to do? They said they wanted. What are we going to do? Somebody find a budget for it. So we did. Okay, this one I'm going to start off with. Let's start off with Randy. Can you walk us through how accessibility was integrated into the design phase of BMO?
Yeah, absolutely. So from project inception and in alignment with Calgary Stampede objectives, we're really striving to make our properties and all of our buildings, new and existing, as inclusive and as welcome as practically possible. In doing so, we established a relationship with Darby, a level playing field, and her team, as well as community partners in association with our lead architect, which was Leo and Stantec, with professional expertise, which assisted in informing the key accessibility design features and the successes throughout the project.
And
Sorry.
Leo?
Sure. Yeah, I would say, just kind of building on what Randy has shared, for us competing to win the job as an architect, right away we knew that the importance of accessibility in the design of the facility. So we reached out to Darby and her team to join our submission to win the job. And so immediately we had a team member that was going to be the voice and the educated person sharing her knowledge with us. Add to that, we had a client that really wanted this, really wanted to raise the bar for what accessibility meant, and that was the Calgary Stampede organization, but also the third party development arm called CMLC, who really were advocates that this was important. And then as we moved into design, we didn't treat Darby's team as please check things after design was already done. She was an integral member of the design team. So as we're exploring, where should we put elevators? Where should we put, to your point earlier, Ebony, where should we put the escalators? She could be vocal and give us the perspective of what would be better placement of these things. And then just, in addition to that layer of expertise, both the client and Darby helped establish 2 rounds of community input. One was city engagement, and then the second was community engagement, where we opened up calls just like this one to all patrons that were interested in the building or had an impact in the built environment in Calgary. And they shared their perspectives as to what mattered. So we had all of these layers of interest and these layers of expertise, and then community engagement. And I would say that's what resulted in a really successful design.
Well, and I think too, Evan, you just to lean on Leo and Randy, is the fact that our BMO expansion was done all during COVID, and it was all done online, including our stakeholder engagement. So we were able to facilitate proper closed captioning and ASL and all those types of things. And yes, I was a voice at the table, and a loud one, I'm sure Leo will say, in challenging the design team and the client in order to make a successful building, and one that we feel proud of. And it's definitely one that we're super excited that is now brand new and open for everybody to come and see. We're hoping it's a game changer for as conference centers move forward in how to do spaces, correctly or inclusively, where everybody feels that they can enjoy themselves and really be themselves, but also strive and keep their independence and have a good time, or as Stampede would say, a Yahoo time. Not yeehaw, because as Canadians, it's Yahoo. But yeah, it's all about keeping someone's independence, and by striving for proper accessibility, that's how we did it. And as Canadians up here, we don't have the ADA, though we do follow it. We do not have an accessibility guideline or an ADA-like. We've got a federal act, but it's really only for federally regulated corporations, which really means nobody in all hindsight. So it's a proud project. And I know from being somebody who started at Stampede when I was 14 to now seeing the BMO expansion open, including our train station as well, Stampede Station. It's a game changer for the city, and hopefully a game changer for the country in general.
Awesome. So you talked about, building beyond the code. So what advice would you give to this group of individuals when, you're trying to convince, your leadership, your team to go beyond what is compliance to another level? We'll start with, Darby, you want to go?
Sure, I can go. They
Okay.
can piggyback. I would say the biggest thing for me is, and I say it all the time, the code is the floor. It's not the ceiling. And it's the matter of trying to push those conversations. Yeah, they're going to be uncomfortable, but at the same time, go into the room and be like, but I'm a person, so why shouldn't everybody else? And if you need crucial backup or anything like that, then reach out to the accessibility consultants. There is accessibility consultants in the US because we partner with quite a few of them on different things. And we're able to help those conversations, but we need to get away from the mentality of check boxes, because you're not a checkbox. I'm not a checkbox. We're both people. And I get dollar signs, and dollar signs are scary, but at the same time, good design costs money. I think that's something Leo would say, not me. But it's just, yeah, it's the importance of, we all have money to spend, we all want to be there, and we should all be treated the exact same way.
Thanks, Darby. Leo, you want to go next?
Sure, I'll add to that, sharing that probably everybody in this call is interested running venues that bring people together. So that's performing arts venues, arenas, convention centers, really big spaces that bring a lot of people. So sometimes I think it's helpful to the owners of these facilities to answer your question as to how do we get their buy-in for support on going beyond code. If you can make the argument that this is in an effort to bring more people to your facility, this will open doors to a larger community, and they will then in turn spread the word about the success of this building, that more people can come, they'll get excited about it. And in this particular case for us, the BMO Convention Center, they want to host the best conventions on the international circuit that are out there. And so if having the adult change tables, if having the listening devices mean it's going to garner more interest from bigger shows, that has monetary value to the planners of these shows, and they'll listen. So once you turn the conversation about away from the money you're spending and more on the money you can bring in, then you get their attention.
Thanks, Leo. I think that's definitely good advice. Randy, what about you?
I think that I must have a caption coming from my head, because Leo, I mean, my thoughts were precisely what Leo's are. I think we all live in a world, probably the majority of us on this call do live in a world of where our bottom line is guest experience, and ensuring that we actually do make our properties or our buildings as inclusive as possible will ultimately lead to a better guest experience. And a good guest experience is a returning visitor, ultimately.
So true. So I had a question that came in here from Brittany, any US accessibility consultants you can recommend, or links or resources that you might be able to provide? And so
Yeah,
Darby,
I've got a couple. I can Ebony, if you have a way of communicating that to Brittany, I can definitely get you their information
yes, if you
offline.
can send us over whatever you have, we'll make sure that Amy will, she will be an amazing host, and she will send that out to everybody that registered for the event.
Yeah, that's
So
not, and
Brittany will get you that.
yeah,
Um, so let me see. I got another message. Just oh, she said thank you. Um, so how do you think? How would you say that collaboration between architects, operation teams, accessibility consultants help to drive better outcomes? Oh, somebody also said for Canada too. Could we please send consultant information? Um, yes, we'll get it for both. But I think Darby, you're in Canada, right?
yeah, I'm in Canada and we do projects both Canada and the US.
Okay,
So
so just so everybody knows, Darby can do Canada and US if you're interested.
yeah, because I'm also a certified ADA coordinator as well. So yeah, no, we can help. Ebony, who are you throwing that question to?
We'll start with Randy. I think he's we I want Leo to have to pull from you now.
I think that I mean the biggest takeaway is for me. I mean, you know what, the collaborative opportunities that we have at the head end of any of these projects. Um, I've been managing projects for 20 some years now, and I continue to see the organic growth of including accessibility studies on the front end and ensuring that we have Darby at the table on the head end of the project to ensure, you know, going back to Leo's earlier comment about making sure that we actually don't, you know, quote unquote, forget about, you know, the accessibility things that we actually had to include in the project. And we're ultimately doing them at the end, which is going to cost money and it's going to create a number of headaches. And having, you know, planting that seed really early creates that kind of organic growth to make sure that we have somebody at the table who's a part of the team, um, to ensure that we actually do not face these headaches and, you know, financial financial headaches at the end as well.
So, Leo?
Sure. I think the best collaboration starts with everyone at the table right at the very beginning. The sooner you're hearing these voices, the sooner you're hearing these opinions, these perspectives, the more it has a chance to influence those holding the design pen, the more it has a chance to influence those holding the pocketbook, and ultimately the people building it. So whether it's accessibility voices or even any voice, the more collaborators participating earlier, the outcomes will be better. And I think, you know, I can offer on the BMO that includes the accessibility design work that we've been speaking about here, but it also includes the provision of art. We had conversations very early about how to infuse the building with public art. If we had just tacked that on at the very end, it wouldn't be as successful as it is today. Same, we had input from the builder for the constructability of certain elements. If we hadn't had that right from the start, we would have been in budget troubles much later. So like everything, add it to the mix as early as possible at the beginning.
Awesome, thank you. And Darby?
You know, both Randy and Leo have said exactly what needs to be said. The biggest thing is having everybody at the table. Stop being afraid and being like, okay, we're in design development per se, and now it's time to involve sub-consultants or consultants. No, we're way better if we're all together and we're considered a team, which I think is one that's made this project BMO very successful, is the fact that we all felt that we were part of the team. because we were all there from day one and able to include those conversations and not just be like, okay, now moving on. Okay, now it's your turn. And that makes it, as much as we hate to say family, sort of a design family where we all felt safe and being able to actually provide feedback and commentary as needed without being like, whoa, are they going to be unhappy or not? So I second what both Randy and Leo have said.
And the earlier, I guess I'll just add, the earlier you start, then you take away the fear. I think Darby's touching on something where people are scared to have certain conversations with certain individuals too soon, or maybe there's budget impact from that, or I might say something offensive. If you can remove that fear and just be open to exploring it, it's just all exploratory at the beginning. Then everybody lets their guard down, shares what's really mattering to them and driving the project. And that works its way into the design and into the budget, and then you're off to the races.
Yeah, I like that comment, because I know I've made the comment in meetings that I've been in that, there is this fear surrounding the word or the conversations around accessibility, because everyone is afraid I'm going to offend somebody. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want them to think that I meant something else. And I think understanding the intention of anything is really important. But Darby, can you speak a little bit to that, as you know, what are some ways you think we can eliminate fear in a conversation? Like, how does someone here go to their leadership and be able to have this conversation without the one of the focal points being, well, if we don't, we could get sued and it's going to cost us more money than anyway. Because I feel like a lot of times people will lean on, well, we could get sued, and that shouldn't be the main focus, or we shouldn't invoke fear in why we make something accessible for all. So do you have any suggestions around that?
Well, and I think, Ebony, from doing work in the States and traveling a ton, yeah, you guys have drive-by lawsuits, which is scary, 100%, which is too bad. And luckily for Canadians, we just don't do that. We say sorry and move on, or try and fix this fix the scenario. But I think it's trying to have that friendly conversation, and instead of being like, hey, this is going to get us sued, or it's trying to take it to a different level of a conversation and being like, hey, I've seen this. Is there any chance could we discuss this and figure out maybe a way of handling it? Because you are right. It's scary. And I've been in situations in US buildings where I'm like, you're saying that to me? Like, you, as far as I'm aware of, you can't say that to me. But it's the matter of being like, hey, do you mind? Can we have this conversation? Can we talk about this? Or this has come up. I've noticed this and I would like to try and see if we can fix it so that we don't end up in a situation where we're sued. And if you approach it from a different viewpoint, rather than being like, hey, we're going to be sued. Now, maybe that's a Canadian and being too nice about it. I don't know. But that's how I would definitely deal with situations that arise for us, whether it's hotel, whether it's air, whether it's stadiums or arenas or whatever it is. It's trying to have that friendly conversation of, hey, I think this is happening. How can we fix it? Versus, or how can we have a discussion to talk about it to see if we can fix it before it gets too far down the line? Would that work, Ebony?
I mean, I think so, but sounds like a couple of us need to try that.
Try the Canadian way.
Try the Canadian way. It's nicer. Randy, is there anything you want to add on top of that at all?
No, I think that Darby hit it all. That was perfect.
Okay. We got a question that came in from Adam. Excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me. For those looking to make improvements to a built environment already, do you have any suggestions as to where to start or what to prioritize?
Leo, why don't you take that to start?
Sure. Yeah, I think you might take a look at what you might have for budget and look at it in those three categories of physical, sensory, and communication, because maybe changing some of the physical environment might not suit your budget, but the sensory and the communication pieces could absolutely be a quick win, and I hate to use the term low hanging fruit, but certainly easier hits with the budget you've got available. So improvements to your signage, adding the braille, taking a look at your font, color contrast of your signage, size of the font for the visually impaired. Um, that can all be done without spending a lot of money. The same on the sensory side, the listening devices, being careful on sound levels for acoustics, or adding acoustic panels in very noisy areas so that people with sensory challenges have a better experience. Those don't have to cost as much money as tearing out walls to fit in a larger door, or opening up walls to add electric wiring for handicap operator panels, things like that. So I would just suggest taking a look at your budget and then thinking about those other categories for some more affordable wins.
Thanks, Leo. That's a good one. Anybody else have something they want to add? Okay.
You said it.
Awesome. Look, it's the proper amount of silence. It's what we say in some of our other meetings. Like, anybody have anything else? Okay, that's the proper amount of silence. We'll move on to the next one. When you talk about success, what does success look like to you when it comes to accessibility in venues? And we'll start with Randy.
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, this goes back to my earlier comment about we live in this world of what we'll call it hospitality and returning visitors. That is always the number one. I mean, that's our number one objective, is for people to have a great time without actually having any barriers in front of them, and while they're visiting our facilities and our grounds. Furthermore, I think that even if it would entice people to actually come to Calgary to even look at our building and use it as a platform to actually build upon or design upon, I mean, I think that's a big feather in our cap, in our proverbial cap, is to use our building that we work so hard on the front end to have Darby at the table with Leo, with the Calgary Stampede, and ensure that we've actually captured everything, so it actually does ultimately lead to a positive visitor experience for that returning visitor. Of course, we do have an annual, so our 10-day festival that we have in July, we actually do have a survey that goes out that people will return based upon their experiences. And with BMO opening this year for the first time, our ratings have never been so high as they were this year. And I don't doubt that how we actually implemented everything to do with accessibility in BMO Center and opening our doors to basically to the world led to that positive experience and those ratings that we received this year.
Thanks, Randy. Leo?
I would say two things in terms of measuring the success. One would be word of mouth. Again, these venues are all about drawing people together, bringing people together in these venues. So seeing great conversation in social media and getting the word out there that these facilities are open to a larger community than ever before. And then the fact that those happy guests are likely leading to more bookings. So you can actually see it in your bottom line. The second thing I would say would be, from a pure architect's perspective, no renovations. If you're having to renovate the facility that you just built, then there have potentially been some failures or some misses. So to see that everything met the criteria right from the get-go with that first capital expenditure, then that's really satisfying for both the owner and for the architect.
Thank you. Darby?
And I would second both what Randy and Leo said. It's the importance of also future proofing. So by bringing in the accessibility consultants, you also can somewhat foresight what's going to happen in years to come and apply the changes, and make sure that everybody feels like it's warm and welcome. But I think one of the other big ones, Ebony, that I wanted to mention was that not only built environment, but guest services and guest relations is a huge aspect for persons with disabilities. And if guest relations and guest services crews are trained correctly on the features, not only in the BMO, but in stadiums and theaters and so on, and they truly understand the different features and the meanings behind them, then that can also help with the patrons that come. And so that they can clearly dictate and help explain why things are the way they are, and help people find if they need certain seating, if they need certain features like the hearing loops and stuff like that. If the staff understand those features, then you're also bringing the clientele back, because they're like, hey, I went to guest services, couldn't find something or needed help, and they actually understood how to explain to me or took me to where that feature is, the universal washroom, for example. So it's not just on the built environment aspect, it's also on the guest services aspect. And the more you can bring a human approach to it, and understand the different features and how to explain it, the better off we all are, not just staff, but the patrons as well. And then people aren't scared to come up and ask for something, because I've seen it where staff are like, I don't know, or they've been like, this thing, and handed it to me, and I'm like, oh boy. So guest services plays a major factor in the buildings, not just what Leo and Randy do on the design side of things, but the actual teams, which I'm sure you know as with your work. And if they're not trained correctly to handle situations, then it leads down a pathway that can get ugly and maybe in hindsight turn into a drive-by lawsuit, as you guys call them. So
Yes, and Darby, you must be some kind of mind reader, because Lindsay popped in a question. I asked for any final questions. Lindsay popped one in, so this is the last one we're gonna get before we have to. Believe it or not, our hour is done. So we're about to be out of here. But she said, can we talk about strategies for training staff to be more aware of disabilities, including those labeled with the invisible disability or autism spectrum disorder? And what I'm gonna say too is, and definitely I'll turn it over to our wonderful panel here, but I want to say, if there's anybody that's in the group now that has had a positive experience with any specific training that they've done with their team, please put that in the chat for us so that we can share that with Lindsay. I will say, I, as a guest experience person specifically, and I'm the vice, for those of you that don't know, I'm the vice president of guest experience at UBS Arena in Elmont, New York. So we are home to the New York Islanders, and then of course we hold additional concerts and shows. I have the privilege of working in a building that from the get-go was designed with, you know, features that do cater to individuals not just with physical disabilities, but with other disabilities as well. We have three sensory rooms in our venue. We have a number of family restrooms, or I would say gender neutral or family restrooms. We have a number of those in our building. We were able to, my leadership, my ownership were very much on board early with me when I said, you know, hey, these are the type of wheelchairs that we should have inside of the building, because we have standard wheelchairs, but we also were able to order Staxies. I don't have a lot of them, I'm not an airport over here, but I have I think I have 8 or 10, which is a lot, but I was able to push for it in the beginning, which makes it easier for my wheelchair escorts. So there were things that I was able to do early that helped us. And then just always making sure that accessibility was was a forefront. It was included. It's always been included in our training for day one. It's been something that we've told our team members is important, and we expect for them to know the information, and then making sure that we acknowledge the people that utilize that information and utilize it correctly. But it's in all of our trainings. The information is on our event notes. We make sure that we, recognize people that go above and beyond with our guests with disabilities, um, no matter what they are. Um, we had created an accessibility resource guide that is available to guests as well as our team members, and we made that available on our website. Some people have put in here the Hidden Disability Sunflowers, Culture City. Those are all, good resources that you can utilize. We actually have a secret shop that is done twice a year by a person with a disability. So they come in and they go through the experience from parking
All
all
the
the way
way.
through end of event to give us feedback. And they do it, it's a person that is wheelchair bound. So they do it driving their own vehicle, which is of course an ADA vehicle, and then they do it utilizing Accessoride. So again, it gives us a different perspective of what they see, and then how we can train on that. So I would give all of those as, suggestions or things that you might be able to do as far as
There's
training is concerned. Darby?
there's one Ebony that IAVM is also aware of, but Nanette Odell does Venue Access Academy. And I've taken her program. A lot of people who go for ADA coordinator have also taken her program. And it is a very successful program when it comes to training and training staff on how to deal with persons with disabilities. So I'll also provide that information. She's worked with MLB and she's done theaters, and I know a lot of my venue school classmates from this year have joined the program this fall with Nanette, and I think it's a fabulous way for people to at least get some sort of education. Yes, that's correct. ADA Life Quest, but it's also known as Venue Access Academy. And it's a great, intense program, but you'll learn a lot. And I'm very thankful for her in providing that education, especially when it comes around to arenas and stadiums and sports facilities.
Thanks, Darby.
No problem.
Randy or Leo, anything that you have seen from your experiences that might be able to assist when we talk about training?
With all due respect, that's not really a world that I really live in, Ebony. So I don't think that I can really address that question appropriately.
Okay.
Yes.
Listen, I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want to give an offside remark.
Leo, anything from you that you may have seen or experienced that you thought was an amazing training for people to work with people with disabilities?
Um, well, maybe just building on something that you made mention of, and that's sensory spaces designed into facilities. So I mentioned at the top of this call, I kind of represent our education studios for Stantec. And so what we're seeing over time is that sensory spaces for mental health reasons and other challenges are being introduced in K-6 learning environments, kindergarten, primary school. And then those very same people are moving through the system, and now they're expecting those as part of their college and university experience, that they have somewhere to decompress, to have a mental health break. We've been designing them. They've been called Zen dens. And then they in turn are going out into the workforce. So we're starting to see the requirement for those in corporate workplace environments, that they have somewhere to decompress, and then introduce them into places where people gather, arenas, performing arts venues, convention centers. And what I would offer here and what I have seen done is offering those in existing spaces. Maybe you don't have enough money to renovate, but you can take a small meeting room or a small breakout room and turn that into a multisensory Zen den, if you will, so that need and that service is met for patrons requiring that. And that would be an operational thing you could offer through training and introduce that to your customers.
Thanks, Lyle. Appreciate it. Well, that was it. We've got 3 minutes left, so I know Amy's going to jump back on. I want to thank the three of you. This was an amazing conversation. We've already got some positive feedback in the chat about it, so thank you all for participating today. We really appreciate it.